Hey guys, so while I'm working on these wonderful donuts and daisies pictures, I wanted to take the opportunity to um, give you guys some insight into the whole selection process. Some of you might be pretty experienced with it and be good at it, but I figured that a little bit uh, of a visual here would help some of you because the selection process is literally the most important part of combining images together in a realistic way. And if it doesn't look realistic, then it's probably not going to look magical. So I'm starting out with this backdrop that I created from the one that I photographed at her house. And each layer has something different, some shadowing, and here's a group that I bundled up together of some donuts and daisies. Then I added in this crate, and then the background stuff, and these are all separate parts of the image. I've got the flowers all together there. And I also did smart filters. If you convert an object, let me show you on one that's not already done. If you right click a layer and convert to smart object, then you're able to apply the filters just like you usually would, but then you get a layer mask with the filters because it's a smart filter. Then once you create a smart layer, you get a smart filter. And then, when you apply the effect, usually if it's not a smart object that you're applying it to, then you can't go back and change it once you've done it without just undoing. So with the smart filter, you can double click on the blur and, increase or decrease it until it looks good. So I added blur here to these background pieces to simulate depth of field. So anyways, I'm about to place this girl into this image. And as you can see, it was a disaster because they didn't have hardwoods and I didn't have anything hard to lay my flooring on, so it's all bunched up, and the backdrop wasn't nearly big enough. And this is a stand-in for our crate that I added into the image. So I'm going to have to select her and place her over here. So I typically start with this quick selection tool and roughly go around her. And you want it to be as good as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect at this point. If you hold down Alt, you can deselect some areas that you accidentally selected. Now, next I go up to Refine Edge, and with this part, I can choose how I want to see my selection. I'm going to go with the red that's deselected. At this point, I'm working on the hair, getting it selected better. This is a great tool for selecting hair as long as it's contrasts enough from the background, and her hair does. So this will help me get all these little tiny hairs. And it probably won't work very well on her bow. I don't think it's contrasty enough from the background. It looked like it did okay, but I'll still have to clean it up. And it's not going to work very well in here because it gets a little blurry. It'll probably work okay on her hands because they're such a different color from the bucket. So I'm just drawing around these edges and letting it do the rest of the work. And it's really sloppy here, so I'm going to have to clean that up. You can see her hands are kind of pink, which means they're not selected. So that's all I'm going to do with the, well, I am going to smooth it just a bit. And that's all I'll do in the refine selection. Now I can go over here to this button on the toolbar that looks like a rectangle with the circle in the center. And that's going to bring up quick mask mode. And then I use a regular brush. Black hides a selection, so if you were to paint black on here, it would show up as red because it's hiding. And the white reveals the selection. So I'm going to go in and start to clean up these areas. This part's no fun, but it's pretty much necessary. Selection is not typically an easy, quick process. And there's no one size fits all selection tool. They all work in different ways, and some work better than others for different situations. And I usually type X to switch between black and white more quickly as I'm going along the edges. And as I'm selecting her each time, I'm thinking we might as well not have even photographed her on the backdrop because I'm having to cut her out from it. But then I think about, if I have a little extra of the background color leaking through on her skin or, around her hair, that's not going to be such a big deal because the backdrop is, the same pretty much. It's just got some added features like the flowers, but this does allow me not to have to be so perfect with the selection. Plus, I think her mom would have been pretty devastated if we didn't photograph her on the backdrop that she spent forever making. And that backdrop is going to be the one that's going to be behind her at her birthday party when she bites into her cake. So it served two purposes. And when you're going in here to clean up stuff, look at the edges, and if they're really soft, like if they're a little bit blurry, you can soften your brush so that it'll match. And anywhere that I see I can select with like a straight line to make it easier, I'll click, hold down my brush, and then hold down shift, lift up my brush, and then touch it down at the other end of the straight line, and it'll fill in a straight line for you so that you don't have to try to be so perfect with the brush. And again, here I don't have to get too close to her toes because she's standing on the same thing I'm about to place her on. So I think I chopped a toe there a little bit. And this isn't super smooth here, so I want to smooth it out. Okay, I think that's got her. There's a little bit showing through here, and I think that's going to be okay when I pull her over. So now that I've finished refining it and fixing the selection, I can click this again, and now she's got the little marching ant lines around her. And with the selection tool, I can right click, layer via copy, and then with the move tool, I can drag her up and over to my backdrop. And they'll have to be, oopsie, I have her a little clipped in here. Let me move her out of that area to the top. Make sure I didn't mess up any clipping masks. I don't think I did. Okay, so I'm going to have to resize her a good bit, obviously. And her hands are going to give me a little bit of trouble here because of the perspective. I shot her slightly overhead, and just slightly, but a little more so than this crate is. So they don't perspective-wise line up perfectly, but I still think that's okay. So I'm probably going to do a little warping to get her in there just right. But this hand is okay, I want to make this hand come down. So I held down Control while I clicked her layer, and that got her selected again. Under Edit, I can go to Puppet Warp, and that puts a web over her, and I'm going to use all these points to move her around, but if I just click and move her, it'll move her whole body. So I need to anchor some places that I don't want to move, and I'm doing that just by clicking. I don't want her head to move. I don't think I want, I'm going to delete this one because I think that might have to move. I don't want her body to move. So I'm just anchoring down a few places to keep those areas from moving. So now I want to lift this up slightly, and I want this to come down slightly. And I say slightly because it really does need to be subtle. I don't want her looking too funky. That's probably not good right there. I'll try lifting this up a little bit and bring this down a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to hit enter and see if that looks funky. I think it's believable. Ugh, this right here looks really funny. Let me see if I move her a little bit. And check out her feet and see if they're where they need to be. They look okay. So really, I need to work on her hands just a bit more. So I'm going to Puppet Warp again. Anchor some things. I think I think I messed up when I brought her over from the selection. I need to fix that. So I'm going to completely delete her from this image. Because the good thing is I have her selection saved right here. So if I hold down Control and click that and then go back to the background, that'll have her selected again. So I'll hide the layer that I copied. I need to take a close look at the selection on her hands. It would appear that I have it all selected, it just looks funny. Okay, well, that's good to know. Now I can come back here and undo the delete because I do have her hands selected, right? So I'm going to try to warp her again. So I'm going to anchor that. Bring this up and that down. And then this needs to come down. And I think I have an idea to take care of that little area there. And this area here. So I'm going to deselect, go to my stamp tool at 100% opacity, like 80% hardness, and try to fill out her finger a little bit using her pinky as a sample. That's not looking so good. And then I'm going to take the crate and fill in some of this so that it would appear that she's holding on to it more so. I'm going to give her a layer mask and try to fix some of this so that it looks a little better. And then go back to the crate again, fill in this a little bit more. And we'll see what that looks like. This might be a little bit of a disaster. So her finger looks squished. Hmm. Okay. So with the liquefy bulging tool, I think that might have saved her hand. It was looking funky. Okay, anyways, so that's the basic placement. You know, haven't done the shadows or anything yet. Um, I might as well go ahead and do the shadows for you. So I will start with the shadows of her hands because that's what's really going to make them tie to this crate. And so what I have to do is find the crate, and I've already got a little shadowing done on the crate. I need to do some more, and there's a few different ways you can do shadowing. I'm going to try a brightness and contrast layer. Yeah, that's getting it nice and dark. Control I to invert the layer mask. And I placed this brightness and darkness directly above the crate, underneath an adjustment layer that was already clipped, so that automatically clipped this one. And that means that it's not going to, when I paint on, it's only going to paint on to the crate and nothing else in the background. And I'm starting with a 50% opacity brush, making it completely soft, just going with white, going under her hand here, where the contact would be. It looks like these fingers might be floating away from it a little bit, so I'm going to go with that and um, not add any contact shadows underneath those, because the contact shadows are basically where the shadows are the darkest, where the hands or whatever you're shadowing are meeting the background. So with a 50%, I did the contact shadows. So now I'm going to go down to 30% to do the broad spreading shadows. And since our hand is kind of away, it looks like it's away from it, I'm just doing some broad shadows under there. And then just a couple broad ones here where the arm and her hand are shadowing here. And then I'm just going to come down here with a little bit more. Then I need to do the shadow of where she's standing, and in the image that I took her out of, let's exit quick mask mode, I can see the shadows go diagonally behind her here, so I'm going to try to mimic that. And so basically this one can go just directly underneath her, and a brightness contrast layer should do. And I just brought the brightness all the way down, Control I to invert the layer mask, and I'm going to keep it at 30 for right now. I think I'm going to go with 10 just to gradually build the shadows in. So I know that this needs to go up and behind her, and so does this one from her other foot. And this is a layer underneath her, so I'm not worried about getting this on her. So now I'm just kind of building up the shadows. And I need to do a little bit of contact shadowing under her foot. I left a little bit of it when I made the selection of her, but I need a little bit more. And I'm going to bring up my opacity to 30. Ooh, it's a little dark. So I'm going to try to bring this down a little bit behind her. And probably I'm just kind of playing with it till it looks realistic to me. And then I've already got this shadowing here that I'm not thinking looks very good right here at the edge. Oop, I wasn't even doing that one. I was on the wrong layer. Okay, here's the one that I want to get rid of a little bit here. Here we go. So I'll add a little bit here because it's like the shadow should be coming here and then going up here a little bit. Let me go to a different layer. These are all layers that I created before, so if you can't follow which layers I'm going to, then that's why, because these are lots of layers from where I made the background. Okay, so that gets us to an image that I can, take and edit from here. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I hope that's helpful to somebody.